Hello, my name is Megan and I'll be presenting our paper on the Puzzle Challenge Analysis tool. The aim of our paper is to present a tool that could be used to analyse the challenge level of puzzles found inside of video games. So we wanted to look at how puzzle characteristics could affect which metrics could be used and which metrics are most effective at representing challenge. In our literature review on papers that had attempted to measure difficulty or challenge, we found that most focused on simple games that were easy to modify for research purposes, or games that were action-based and had a score associated with player performance, making it easy to measure outcomes. The closest paper we could find to what we were attempting to do was Denisova's 2020 paper, which presented the Corgus scale, which measures player perceived challenge. So our paper presents a tool that could be used with commercial video games. It focuses on cognitive challenge, not performative or skill-based challenge. Also, we investigated puzzle-based and player behavior-based metrics instead of survey scales. Sometimes the terms difficulty and challenge can be used interchangeably, so going with the consensus or the majority view from the literature that we reviewed, we went with the following definitions, with difficulty referring to the probability of player failure in a task, and challenge referring to the player effort towards successfully completing an in-game task. The two games we used to develop the Puzzle Challenge Analysis tool were The Witness and Untitled Goose game. In The Witness, players solve puzzles by drawing a line from the start point to the finish point. The line also has to meet a series of conditions determined by the symbols shown in the puzzle. Players learn the mechanics through trial and error, and there is only one solution for each puzzle. In the development of our tool, we focused on an area of The Witness commonly called SIGCHI Island, which consists of about 38 puzzles. Over the 38 puzzles in SIGCHI Island, which are presented in distinct groups, we found that time taken to solve and incorrect solutions submitted provided the best representation of the challenge level of the puzzles. For the other metrics we investigated that didn't work, you can see our paper, but you can generally find that the challenge level does fluctuate, being more challenging at the end of every grouping represented by our vertical dashed lines, and then towards the end of the SIGCHI Island as well. The second game we used was Untitled Goose game, where players play as a goose and have to complete a series of tasks. So we just focused on the first area, the garden area, where players must finish 6 of 7 tasks presented to them. The tasks vary in challenge level, but players can attempt them all at once or switch between them very easily, and they just figure out the answers through experimentation. There's more than one answer for each puzzle in this case. For Untitled Goose game, we found time to solve and number of actions when compared to the minimum number of actions to solve a puzzle were the best representations of challenge. The other thing we needed to take into account for Untitled Goose game is that players could leave a task unfinished, and we found that task 1.4 was the task most commonly left unfinished. Task 1.4 was to make the groundskeeper wear his sun hat. The players can see the sun hat but cannot access it or grab it off the back of the door here, and so it's probably the least obvious puzzle out of the 7 presented to the player. So this is the final version of our Puzzle Challenge Analysis tool. On the left is a list of puzzle characteristics, and on the right are some suggested metrics that could be used to indicate challenge. We tested the Puzzle Challenge Analysis tool for generalisability by applying it to a third game, Bubba Is You. In Bubba Is You, players must satisfy the win condition for each level. This is the tutorial level where flag is win. But players also have control over the logic and rules of each level as they can move the words around. Applying the tool to Bubba Is You, you can see the suggested metrics highlighted in red and in bold. So using the metrics identified by our Puzzle Challenge Analysis tool, we found time to solve and number of actions when compared to the minimum number of actions required to solve provided the best picture of challenge. In this case, all of our participants solved all 7 puzzles, so we did not chart attempted but incomplete puzzles as everything was complete. So in applying the Puzzle Challenge Analysis tool, we found that usually 2 metrics provided a better picture of challenge than using one alone. We also found that metrics across different games had different levels of precision and accuracy. For example, time taken to solve a puzzle in Untitled Goose game was much more difficult to measure, so would be much less precise and accurate than those measurements taken for The Witness and Bubba Is You. The last thing to note is that these metrics aren't a definitive measure of challenge. They need to be taken with a grain of salt. They're just a picture and an indication of challenge. For example, with Untitled Goose Game, the behaviour of the non-player character added an element of chance to some of our player behaviour metrics, including the case of one player where the groundskeeper walked into the lake to retrieve the rake the player had put there, thus solving the Get the Groundskeeper Wet challenge without the player consciously attempting it. There are limitations to our work, and the next steps would be to take the predictions from our puzzle challenge analysis tool and compare them to a ground truth measurement of challenge. One way to do this could be to use a modified version of Denisova's Corgus scale. Thank you for listening.